All right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here in a new setup. I'm here in Minneapolis. I'm sorry if the Wi-Fi is bad. I've been doing my best over the course of these past few weeks, past few days, past 6 hours to try to get this Wi-Fi better. Hopefully it's not that bad. Hopefully you guys can see and hear me. Hopefully everything's all good. But wanted to go live, let you know that I'm here, and also talk about some news that I wasn't able to really comment on too much last night, as the big fella, Nikola Jokic, gets his third MVP in the last 4 seasons. Just a tremendous job by him throughout the regular season, putting himself into a position where he could even be possibly considering that award is a big, big deal, especially with the competition that he faced throughout the year. And it was just really nice to see him deliver on that. Great stuff from the big fella, Nikola Jokic. We'll get into that. We'll get into his place in history, as well as I've got some things for Game 3. I've got some things that I asked the audience at large. What do you want to see from the Nuggets in Game 3 in order to get this done, in order to come back in this series? And we'll go over that as well. So should be a lot of fun. Excited to do it. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. First, I've got to talk to everybody, though, about our good friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all of your summer sports, whether it's NBA and NHL playoffs, or it's MLB, or golf, or anything in between. Get all the latest stats, news, and scores available to you from your favorite teams. Get the latest odds, lines, and all the team matchups that you're looking for, and then see where the lines are moving. Player props, odds on just about every sport out there. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Nikola. Obviously, this is a weird time to talk about the MVP. Usually in the second round, or at least if you're a Nuggets fan, you'd want to hope that things feel a lot better in the second round playoff series than they actually do right now. I'm here in Minneapolis, and there's currently no promise that the Nuggets play again in Denver so far this year. And that is very scary. If you're a Nuggets fan, you're probably wondering what the hell happened in these last few days that really flipped this thing around. I think everybody knew that Minnesota would be a challenge, but to see the way that Denver played in the first 2 games, it probably takes away from the joyful feeling that Nuggets fans should have right now, where everybody should be over the moon. Everybody should be so excited about what Nikola Jokic has accomplished in his NBA career, how he's been one of the most dominant players that the NBA has seen in this modern era. And it's unfortunate that things have shifted in the last week or so that are kind of this. They're distracting from that, right? We should be able to celebrate what Nikola has done, or Nuggets fans should be able to celebrate what Nikola has done throughout the year. And it's hard. It's hard because of where we're at right now, because of where the NBA calendar is right now, but you still got to try. And so I want to do that. I'm going to take the first segment to do that. Second segment, we'll talk about the Game 3 matchup tomorrow night. But wanted to go over the voting results here really quick. Jokic finished the year with 79 first place votes out of 100. Didn't quite get to 100. Actually, it's out of 99. I'm not sure where the 100th hasn't come in for some reason, because there's been a whole bit to do about that. He had 79 first place votes SGA had 15, Luka had 4, and Giannis had 1. Not sure who voted for Giannis. I'd be curious to find out who did vote for Giannis. I thought that by the end of it, it was very clear that it should be a top 3. And anybody in the top 3, I think you could justify. But like even Jalen Brunson, I think, had a case over Giannis by the end of it. So it's interesting to see where that one came into it. But I honestly think that if Denver doesn't lose game 81 against the San Antonio Spurs, then Jokic probably has like 85 or 90 first place votes. I think that probably swayed a few voters. The fact that SGA and the OKC Thunder finished in the first seed in the West, despite the fact that they tied the Nuggets in total wins. If Denver just had one more win in there and they were at the top of the West, the conversation would be different. And the conversation would be different in a number of categories, including in this particular playoff matchup. If Denver had just taken care of business, that is a thing that we can potentially reflect on going forward. But yeah, Jokic commanded the first place votes. Domantas Sabonis, for some reason, got a fourth place vote, even after getting a third place Defensive Player of the Year vote. Not sure where that came from. The voting is done by a variety of media members. It's mostly like entrenched with like national folks, whether it's ESPN or TNT or like the major outlets. You'll get your local reporters, you'll get some TV guys, and then you'll get some international voters. And then you'll get some like analysts, I guess, but like mostly those come from national outlets. So it is a mix of folks that decided to vote for Nikola Jokic. This wasn't like some sort of conspiracy theory. And it was unfortunate to see Shaq's reaction, Shaquille O'Neal, his reaction on TNT the night that Jokic did receive the award. He threw a fit on television for some reason, trying to defend his guy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And like, that's fine. You can have an opinion, but stating said opinion to the face of the guy who won the award was very weird. And then it was just very weird that he got all up and bothered about it throughout that entire time. It was just a very bizarre scenario. Say Levy. But beyond that, Jokic had to fight through a variety of things this year. 79 games played, stayed on the floor, was mostly healthy throughout the entire year, obviously dealing with bumps and bruises, things like that normal NBA players always deal with. But it felt throughout the year like this was one of Jokic's more consistent offensive seasons, where he was bringing the scoring on a more regular basis. And as long as he wasn't getting ejected from games early on in the year or willingly deciding I'm going to pass today, he was putting up pretty consistent numbers, around at least 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists every single night. And that level of consistency and that level of filling up the box score is so helpful for a team where they just have to figure out how to build around that. And so that's what the Nuggets have done. And it's why you see articles come out like Tom Haberstrow's article from this morning, who does a really impressive Substack, or it's Patreon, I think, about Jokic's supporting cast and how he's never had an all-star teammate, an all-NBA teammate, all-defensive teammate, anything like that. And he's I think he is the only MVP in NBA history that can say that. And yet he is winning 3 of them. So it is an unprecedented level of dominance that we're seeing from Nikola, and his ability to lift up those around him, to improve the entire supporting cast, always makes a difference every single time. And it's one of the reasons why this particular playoff series that we're currently facing, that the Nuggets are currently facing, is a little bit odd. It's certainly off-putting for a lot of Nuggets fans because they're seeing Jokic go through some struggles. But those struggles weren't present throughout the regular season. Jokic was dominant, especially in big moments where you wanted to see him show up against the Boston Celtics. He showed up against the Boston Celtics. You wanted to see him show up against the Los Angeles Lakers on national TV. He did that too. He had a lot of great matchups that he put himself out there for. And regardless of the circumstance, he played and he played well. And it was just really nice to see him do that on a consistent basis, following up a crazy year last year where he didn't win the MVP, but still was dominant and then ultimately won a championship. Now he said in his post award press conference yesterday, I wasn't able to attend that, but he said that he would rather win a championship than like have a year like he did last year where he didn't win the MVP, but they won the championship anyway. I think every Nuggets fan at this point would trade that off. I understand that. And like, it's completely fair because of how Nuggets fans are feeling at this moment right now, based off of the award, where they're like, hey, this is awesome. This is great. But like, what's going on right now is very scary. And I understand that too. In terms of history, Jokic being etched in stone, there are very few players in the NBA that can say that they've won 3 MVPs. The list here for you: Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Nikola Jokic. Really, that is the dominant players of every era. Like the most dominant players of every single era. You can make an argument that Steph and Kobe are missing on that list. You can make an argument that, I don't know, who else can you really make an argument for? That's wild. Like, who else can you really make an argument for on that list of like the most dominant players in the NBA? Maybe Shaq. Maybe that's it. This is a crazy list to be a part of. It really is. Jokic's consistency, but also his level that he's reached on a consistent basis over the past 4 years has been something to behold. And I think it was Bennett Durando, who is out here in Minneapolis, by the way. He put out this particular grouping. The only players in NBA history to finish top 2 in MVP voting in 4 straight seasons: Larry Bird, Tim Duncan, and Nikola Jokic. That's a pretty interesting grouping. And it's funny that those are 2 of the players that Jokic is probably most compared to, if we're being honest. Larry Bird in the way he plays, Duncan in the way he acts. And it's that consistency and that willingness to be great over and over and over again that is just so impressive. Don't let what's going on right now distract you from the fact that Jokic has been unbelievable. And this is something to celebrate. This is something to consistently be okay, like celebrating, even if things don't work out, even if the team gets eliminated or whatever. What Nikola Jokic is doing during the prime of his career is nearly unprecedented. It's not quite unprecedented, but it's nearly there. And the fact that you can even have these discussions as a Denver Nuggets fan is unbelievable. Like, the list of players that I put out there that have won 3 MVPs, you've got a Celtic, you've got a San Francisco Warrior / LA Laker, you've got a Buck and a Laker, you've got Houston, Philly mix with Moses Malone, you've got a Celtic with Larry Bird, you've got a Laker with Magic Johnson, you've got a Chicago Bull with Michael Jordan, you've got LeBron, who can, I think, be evenly distributed between 2 of those teams with the Cavs and the Heat for those MVPs. And then you've got Joker. It just doesn't happen in a small market, man. This doesn't happen the way that it has. And it's important to celebrate that. It's important to always keep that in perspective. The season has been tough. The season has had a lot of pressure and expectations. But the most important thing to remember is that Denver is still going to be okay. Even if Nikola Jokic is like a little bit frustrated. It's going to be fun. T says Jokic isn't trying to be great. He just plays the game the right way 99.5% of the time. I agree. And when you have somebody who is willing to put their ego and is willing to put themselves behind whatever the team needs, it's such a valuable trait, and it allows everybody else the opportunity to shine. And it's why the Nuggets are the team that they are. It's why they're as special as they are. It's why people flock to them in a lot of ways. They play for each other. Last thing before we hit a break, I want to point out that there was one person, one player, that was with Nikola Jokic last night when it was announced that he received his MVP. It was Jamal Murray. Jamal could have some resentment. It wouldn't, like with everything that has gone on, with all of the pressure that Jamal faces, with all of the credit that Jokic receives between those two, Jamal could resent the level of success that Joker has in comparison to him. But he doesn't. At least not in plain view where anybody could possibly see it. And I don't think that it's real. I think that he truly, genuinely loves his teammate, and that those two have true, genuine love for each other. And that despite the struggles that the Nuggets are currently going through right now, Murray's still there for Joker in that moment, still there to celebrate with him. And I just thought that was notable when we saw that video last night. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was still important that Denver is together, that through all of the adversity, they are still a team that is united. And I think it's exciting for Nuggets fans that, look, even if this season doesn't finish the way that you would hope, there is still hope that they come out of it on the other side retooled rather than broken up. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to chat about Game 3. I'm going to share some different things from Nuggets Nation about how they would like to see Denver bounce back from Game 3. And I am looking forward to seeing what happens there. Should be fun. But first, Mile High Sports is currently at number 38, watching the Colorado Avalanche face off in their second round series against the Dallas Stars, I believe. Number 38 is hosting all these watch parties for Mile High Sports. We're doing a great job of interacting with them, and they're doing a great job of hosting us. There's giveaways, there's pitcher specials, there's food, there is a live podcast pregame, lots of great stuff that number 38 is currently putting together. So if you are looking for a place to hang out, go to number 38 tomorrow on Friday to go watch Game 3, where the Nuggets face the Timberwolves. Number 38 will take care of you, and there will be a pregame podcast that you can listen to of a bunch of folks from Mile High Sports. I'm currently out here, but there will be a lot of good stuff. So make sure to check them out, number 38. Really excited to partner with them. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. Hey, Nuggets fans, Ryan Blackburn here, host of the Pickaxe and Roll podcast on Mile High Sports. We've got the best Denver Nuggets coverage around, so make sure not to miss an episode and subscribe down below to the Mile High Sports YouTube channel. Nuggets off to a great start. Make sure not to miss a thing on Mile High Sports. All right, back at it. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast. I'm going to flip this in over here. I'm going to put it here, I think. Yeah, that makes more sense. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button down below. Would really appreciate that. So let me get central in the camera here. But I wanted to share my screen here with you. I'm only on my laptop. This isn't a perfect setup or anything, but I asked this question. In your opinion, what's the most important thing that can help the Nuggets get back into this series? And I wanted to use that as a prism to talk about Game 3. As you can see, got a bunch of responses. I got 180 responses here and some quote tweets. We're going to go through some of this. Should be fun. In your opinion, what's the most important thing that can help the Nuggets get back into the series? CJ Jenkins says pride and honor. I think that's a pretty common sentiment for where the Nuggets are at right now. Game 2 was such a jarring thing. One of the worst losses of the Nikola Jokic, Michael Malone, Jamal Murray era. Like, when everybody's healthy, it's very rare for it to look like it did on Monday night. So it would be nice to see Denver show up, play with some pride, even if they don't necessarily win. You want to see them keep it close. You want to see them like put some pressure on the Timberwolves and not just like break like they did during Game 2. It was a pretty depressing thing that happened during Game 2. So hopefully that kind of changes. Yeah. Teledan Hogan from the last segment says, how many MVPs were drafted in the second round? How great of a rise was his floor to his ceiling? The greatest ever, probably. That's another aspect of Nikola's greatness, is that it's just so unexpected and so wild that this happened that it should be celebrated constantly. It really should. Next here, Robert says, they can't even get into their offense most sequences because of Murray's struggles. Needs to be more creative actions, or at least starting the play the right way, the plays the right way and in rhythm. Yeah, Michael Malone talked about that a little bit. Jamal talked about that a little bit, trying to find ways maybe to get him off the ball, but also create some space and separation for him. So much of that is going to be on Jamal to do his work early in a possession and then stay focused and take advantage of any created space. Because one of the problems that Jamal's had over the course of these last few weeks is that whenever he gets an advantage, he'll often dribble and watch the defender catch up to him from behind and not really do anything about it. That's not great. Once he gets a step of advantage, he's got to know how to take advantage of it, and he's got to know how to do the most with it. And if he can do that, maybe that changes. Patrick says, Jokic becoming more aggressive on both ends, Jamal becoming more aggressive on D, and more ball movement oriented on O. Both need to happen. Yeah, I tend to agree. The problem is that if Jamal doesn't become ball dominant, who is holding the ball? I think is a very fair question. Michael Porter hasn't really handled the pressure physically that well either. And when Anthony Edwards is out there guarding Jamal, it means that Jaden McDaniels is often guarding Michael Porter, and that is not an enticing matchup for him either. Jaden McDaniels has done a pretty good job against him. But I do tend to agree that it would be nice for Michael Porter to get more involved in what the Nuggets are doing. They got to create some threes for him, man. That's the most important thing. Let's create some threes for him. And if that means Jamal has to get off the ball a little bit more, maybe Aaron Gordon initiates some more offense, I could see that working. Greg says winning Game 3. Couldn't agree more. Gage says, shout out Gage at Denver Stiffs. Jimmy McGinty said it best. Minnesota looks like the hungrier team that wants it more right now. Denver needs to fight back. Not getting enough calls from the refs. It sucks, but complaining clearly isn't changing that. Show some heart and let's see what happens. Totally agree. It's very important. At this point, Denver's lack of heart in Game 2 was almost more important than the physical and maybe mental issues that they had in that series, the emotional is just like it's unacceptable for a championship team. You have to be emotionally invested in this and cannot let your emotions get out of whack like that. Andy Glockner, Ant, Cat, and Rudy get food poisoning. I can see that. That would be great. I could see that being a much better option for Denver than some of the previous ones. Like now, Gobert, it didn't matter that he was unavailable on this last game because Naz Reid's great, and it just kind of changes how the T-Wolves attack. So I wonder if Denver is ready for the non-Gobert minutes in a way that they were not this last game. Tatted Lawyer says, controlled aggression and focus on defense. Couldn't agree more. Like, would be nice for Denver to be the disruptive team in a way that Minnesota has been. I just don't think that they have the level of athleticism and energy that is probably needed to do that, but hopefully 3 days off has helped Denver with that. Trippy Collector says, Jokic being the best player on the court seems like the most likely path to improving in this series. Agreed. Like, Jokic hasn't been great. And the fact that there's been a lot of discussion about Jamal, obviously. There's been a lot of discussion about like other guys other than Joker. But the fact is that Joker is less dependent on his teammates than I think a lot of people like to say he is. Like, he can control some stuff. He's got to go to the rack. He's got to be willing to take a hit and finish through contact and be willing to do that on a consistent basis. He just hasn't really been willing to do that. So I'm not surprised that things haven't really worked out for him in this series. Hopefully he has some serious change of thought in game 3. Because if Denver goes down 3-0, like, there's just no coming back from that. So Denver's got to win game 3. That's just how it's got to be. Bobby says Cat cannot score freely. He has, very clearly has, and it would be like Aaron Gordon hasn't done anything against Cat. There's no doubt about that. But the more important thing is that whenever Cat is switched on to anybody smaller than him, and that includes Michael Porter, he has been either shooting right over the top of them or driving through them and then finishing over the top of them at the rim. Cat's been really good in this series. He's been really good in the entire playoffs. And he's had this talent. Like, that's the thing that other folks have been like so critical of him for in past years. Like, it's clear that he's talented enough to do what he's just been doing. The fact that he hadn't been able to do so, I think, was a wonder more than anything else. Colin Daniels says, angry Jamal. That would be nice. Jamal, when he is really angry, is not great because he's a little bit too high strung and is a little bit too like turbo mode. But he's got to be the right amount of angry. And that means he's got to show some control. Because if he gets out of control, then it's not a good idea. Patty Graham, who I think is Molly Smith and just like another burner. I think it's the same avatar. Well, the single most important thing is that Jokic needs to want it. As long as it isn't the case, nothing else matters. Otherwise, playing Brown more would be nice. They've won his minutes in both games. That's an interesting take with Christian Brown. One thing that I've been struggling with in this series, I honestly think all 4 of the bench players have been fine. Like, fine to good. Like, certainly not the problem in this series. Reggie Jackson had some great moments. Justin Holiday's been the best player in the series, which is insane. Christian Brown, he's won his minutes, has been solid. Not necessarily perfect, but solid. And then Peyton Watson just hasn't played enough, I think, to justify, like, okay, he can or cannot play. Like, in some of that time, he's been fine. The problem has been the starters. It's been the fact that Jamal's been horrible. that Jokic has been subpar, especially by his standards. And then, like, the defense with Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, KCP, those guys have not held up their end of the bargain defensively. Like, they were supposed to, like, especially Denver's two main defensive guys in Aaron Gordon and KCP. They were supposed to match up with Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards and disrupt them a little bit. But so far, those guys are in a perfect rhythm. There's been nothing about their games that has really been disrupted in any way. So that is a stressful thing. And if you're Denver, that's where it's probably got to start. It is with the defensive end, like at least getting a little bit better. But, I mean, Brown, maybe he helps there. Maybe he does. Nuggets Dynasty says, get Jamal off the ball, let AG initiate a little bit more. Mile High Core 4 says, Jokic taking a shoot-first approach, if we're being honest. If he can swing the pendulum enough that they can double-team him, that would free up other guys with more space to shoot. I agree, obviously. Now, Minnesota has doubled. And one of the things that they've done is they've been doubling from the high side and then rotating up and forcing Jokic to lob a pass into the opposite corner. And when he does that, it gives the defense enough time to recover. And it's just a hard ball from the opposite side of the floor to catch in that corner and then shoot immediately. So guys like Michael Porter or KCP or whoever's there, they're not wanting to shoot that ball. They want to move it another pass or drive it. And when you don't shoot it, that is, of course, playing into the defense's hands. It allows them to recover. This is one of the best recovery defenses in the entire NBA, let alone maybe all time. They've been great. Couple more here and then we'll get out. Don Snow says Minnesota's pressing to slow our offense down. Rudy Gobert is not pressing 94 feet. Let Aaron Gordon bring the ball up. And if they put Cat on him, Joker just brings the ball up. I think that's a great point. And it was a point that Denver learned last year. Honestly, like, other than a couple of plays here or there, Jamal hasn't really struggled to bring the ball up the floor. It's just been about initiating the offense sooner. And it's not like Aaron Gordon or Nikola Jokic are going to dribble the ball up super fast. Like, they're going to take their time as well. And when Gobert is off the floor, Naz Reid will press up. Cat will press up, especially when it's Joker. So it's going to be tough. Like, it's a good point, but it's also something that I don't know. We'll see what happens. 3 more. Defense and Joker playing like the three-time MVP from Amanda Tomlinson. Yeah, defense from Joker would be great. There's not been a lot of defense lately, that's for sure. That's a very hard place for him to be because he does have to do a lot of the offensive end. But frankly, he's not doing a ton on the offensive end in this series. So either get the offense going or get the defense going. One of the two. Jolene says, belief. They haven't looked like themselves this entire playoffs. The mentality doesn't seem to be there. Need them to be true to themselves, play defense, and not get rattled by the Wolves or the refs. That's a good point. Like, Denver has not played a full 48 minutes in these playoffs. Frankly, they haven't really played a full 36 minutes or 24 minutes. It feels like Denver has mostly been behind the 8 ball when it comes to, especially in the first half against these teams, whether it's the Lakers or the T-Wolves. But if it's getting off to a great start, but also just playing the right way, playing a little bit more freely, not necessarily. There's been a lot of stress about it. I hope Denver doesn't stay as stressed because it would be nice for them to play a little bit looser. The problem is that Minnesota's had them playing really tight. They are scared to turn over the ball, nervous to play offense right now. And that's not a great place to be. And then David says, stop worrying about not getting calls. They should know by now. They never will. Arguing about every non-call affected their transition game, and in a big way, they lost their focus. In a big way, and they lost their focus. It's a great point. Like, Denver's got to have their heads on straight. Game 2 was a weakness. Game 2 was one of the weakest mentality games I've seen from this team in a long time. It's just so rare that something like that happens. I'm hopeful that it changes. I am hopeful that Denver finds an opportunity to step up in this moment, because this would be a bad way to go out. You never want to think about it from that regard. You want to think about it from the regard of, hey, we can win this series if you're the Nuggets. We can win the series. You can turn it around in game 3, and then all it takes is one. All it takes is one where you start to instill a little bit of doubt in the opposition. Think about it this way. The T-Wolves are 6-0. They don't know what it's like to lose right now. They haven't lost at all. Now, they're good enough that I don't think it should be much of a concern for them if they did lose one game. Like, they could bounce back and be better the next time around. But sometimes you see with teams that once they lose, they get a little tight. And I think you saw with Denver that they sensed stress in that game 2, and then it really hurt them. If Denver were just to get one game, game 3 from Minnesota, what happens in game 4 if Denver's leading midway through the second quarter? What happens if they're leading big midway through the third quarter? Does that change the series? Probably. Like, it's a possibility, obviously, that Minnesota and Anthony Edwards and a team that's dominated Denver so far just continues to dominate them. Like, I'll say that for sure. But I also think that there is a world where Denver turns it around, and it starts with Jokic and Murray. Those two have to find it. I hope that they found something last night. I hope that they found some energy, some focus, maybe some like recovery and realization and understanding about what's going on. But either way, I'm looking forward to seeing how Denver handles themselves. And I think game 3 it's going to be a big one for the Nuggets, whether it goes well or it goes poorly. Like, we're going to find out a lot about the team. We're going to find out a lot about the character of this group. Are they going to roll over? 3 days rest, multiple practices? Are they going to roll over? Or are they going to recover? Are they going to participate in their own recovery, as Michael Malone likes to say? We'll find out. Folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Number 38. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really, really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. I know everybody's a little bit stressed about where things are at right now. If you hit that like and subscribe, would mean the world. We're out here. I'm out here trying to do my best work, my best coverage. So we'll probably have an article ready for the morning if you want to go check that out on milehighsports.com. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button on the way out. We'll talk to you guys very soon.